number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9.
Hi, it's Patio Musings. I'm Drake. This is number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9. Sitting here on the patio. It's Monday, November the 12th, 2007. Here in the United States, this is the observance of Veterans Day. Yesterday was technically Veterans Day, the 11th of November. It coincides with the original observance of Armistice Day, or Remembrance Day, celebrating the end of hostilities during World War I. Anyway, today is the day that is set aside here in the U.S. to remember veterans, both present and past. I myself am a veteran of the United States Air Force, hence the cap. And I was in the Air Force for 16 years. Served proudly during that time and was actually involved in one somewhat major conflict, and that was the Gulf War during the early 90s, George Bush's war. George H.W. Bush, that is. Anyway, reminiscing about my time in the service today, thinking a little bit about how I went in when my son Michael was pretty young. Hi, yes, how are you? Yes. Anyways, my son had just been born when I went in 1977, and was trying to make a life for my family at the time. I went in what they called open general, and what that basically meant was that I didn't have a job assigned to me directly when I went into the service, but I was going to be assigned one after I was there at basic training. Took a bunch of tests, one of which was a language aptitude test, and I was discovered to have an aptitude for languages. So the Air Force, in their infinite wisdom, decided that I was going to be a linguist. I got chosen to be an Arab linguist, and as soon as basic training was over in Lackland, that's Lackland Air Force Base, San Antonio, Texas, I was sent to Monterey, California, to the Defense Language Institute, which is at the Presidio of Monterey. Spent a little over a year there learning Arabic, basic Arabic, and then went to San Angelo, Texas, for the technical training technical aspect of my training. And from there I was shipped over to Crete, Greece, the island of Crete. I was stationed with the 6931st Electronic Security Squadron at Rackling Air Station. Was there for about 3 years. I left from there and went back to Monterey and took the intermediate language classes for Arabic. And from there I went back to Crete, spent another 3 years there. And after that time, I came back to the United States, and I was stationed at Fort Lee, Maryland. I was assigned to the National Security Agency and did intelligence gathering and analysis as an Arab linguist. And I was there for quite a while, and then I found out that the Air Force was needing some German linguists. Now, when I was in high school, I was a German linguist. And so I thought, well, you know, I'll apply for it. I didn't have much hope that I would be accepted, because I'd already been in for over 10 years and had gone to language training class twice. So, you know, I thought the Air Force had spent a lot of money on me. They weren't going to spend even more money on me, cross-training me to something completely different. Well, I was wrong. They did accept my application, and I went back to Monterey yet a third time. And that's when I took my German language training. We also were instructed in Russian as well. And then I went back to San Angelo because I had to take different technical training since it was now German instead of Arabic that I was going to be a linguist as. And at that point was when I got my assignment to come here to Tucson, to Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, rather than going overseas. I got assigned to the 41st ESC, which stands for Electronic Combat Squadron. And that's a squadron that flies EC-130Hs, doing basically a jamming mission. And linguists go along board in the back of the aircraft and listen in to the bad guys, find the signals that we want to not let them use, and proceed to jam them. Did that for several years. During that time frame, like I like to say, peace broke out in Europe and war broke out in the Middle East. The wall came down in East Germany, or Berlin, and East Germany was no more. Became a unified Germany, and so there wasn't really any need for German linguists anymore. The Germans weren't the bad guys anymore. So those of us that were German linguists got pulled back into our former AFSCs, or we ended up getting completely different jobs. And since I was an Arab linguist, I got pulled back into being an Arab linguist. So I escaped for a short time, but not long. And then that was in the late summer of 1990 was when Saddam Hussein marched his troops into Kuwait. And there were tensions for several months, and in January of 1991 was when we decided to go into Iraq and Kuwait and liberate Kuwait and take care of that situation. So I was over there. I was actually based out of Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates and flew missions out of there. Flew 28 combat missions while I was there, and then when that was all over, came back to the States. Stayed here for a while, and then after Desert Storm was when they were doing some force reductions, and so they were having some opportunities for people to get out early, and I decided to go ahead and take it. Being in the Air Force wasn't too much fun anymore, and there was a better than even chance that if I did re-enlist, I was going to end up being in Saudi Arabia for 4 years, which I did not have any desire doing whatsoever. So I took the early out, and that was, wow, 1993, so you do the math. That was, 14 years ago, 15 years ago, 16 years ago, 17, 18, I don't know, a lot of years ago. And so that was my time in the service. So I want to wish all of you veterans out there a happy Veterans Day. For all you folks out there, take a moment, remember those veterans that you know personally, and for those that you don't know, just think about them. Especially think about those that are in active duty right now overseas. It's a really bad time right now, and we need to really give them our support and thoughts, prayers, love, and best wishes. So anyways, this is Drake. That's the end of Patio Musings number 9. Number 9. Number 9. Number 9. See you later. Talk to you next time. Bye.